The Subala Upanishad in simple English, presented by Swayam Prakash Sharma. The Subala Upanishad is part of the Shukla or the white Yajur Veda. It is in the form of a dialogue between the sage Subal and Lord Brahma, the creator. The origin of the world, the four castes and other beings, the three states of waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, functions of the individual self, Narayan, the basis and support of the world, and as the indwelling spirit of all, and the self, the Atma, the ultimate basis of all the worlds. These are some of the issues discussed in this Upanishad. The Upanishad is presented in three parts. The Upanishad. The sage Subal asked Brahma, Lord, what was there in the beginning? Brahma replied, Subal, in the beginning there was no existence. There was no non existence either. Neither were both existence nor non existence. In the beginning, everything was in the formless state, which can neither be described as existent or as non existent or as both. From that emerged darkness, the principle of objectivity. It is this dark void which has to be illumined. From darkness emerged the subtle elements. From the subtle elements came ether. From ether came air. From air came fire. From fire came water. And from water came the earth. Then there came into being the egg, the world form. This egg incubated for 1 year and then split into two parts. The lower part of the egg became the earth, and the upper part of the egg became the sky. In the middle of the two parts there came into being the divine person with 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 feet, and 1,000 arms. This divine person created death, the foremost of all beings, the three-eyed, the three-headed, and the three-footed Khanda Parshu. Brahma became afraid of death. Death got hold of Brahma alone. Brahma then created 7 sons out of his mind, who in turn created 7 sons out of their minds, who were filled with truth. And these are the Prajapatis, the creators. Out of the divine person's mouth came the Brahmins. Out of the divine person's arms came the Kshatriyas. Out of the divine person's thighs came the Vaishyas, and out of his feet came the Shudras. From his mind came the moon, from his eyes the sun, from his ear came out air and the vital principle, from his heart came out all that is in existence here in the world. From the in-breath of the divine person came out the forest tribes, the forest spirits, the fairies, the demons. From his bones were formed the mountains, from his hairs herbs and trees of the forest. From his forehead came Rudra, the embodiment of anger. Out of the divine person's outbreath came out all the knowledge in the form of the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sam Veda, the Athar Veda, pronunciation, Kalpa Sutras, grammar, the compiling and writing of dictionaries, the study of verses, the science of the movement of the heavenly bodies, the Nyaya logic, investigation of the rules of conduct, of duty and dharma, and of the nature of the ultimate reality of Brahma, investigation of the codes of conduct, commentaries and sub commentaries, and everything else relating to all beings. This world spirit, who is like the light of gold, and in whom are reflected the self, the Atma, and all the worlds, he split his own form into two, half male and half female. Becoming a celestial, he created the celestials, and similarly he created everything that is in existence. He created the seers, he created the forest spirits, he created the fairies, he created the demons, he created the village folk, he created the forest dwellers, he created all the animals. He created everything, one male and one female. He created the goddess Earth, and he created the Lord of the world, Vishnu. And at the end of time, the same world spirit, becoming Vaishvanar, burns up the world, he dissolves the world. Then the reverse of creation takes place. The earth dissolves in water, water dissolves in fire, fire dissolves in air, air dissolves in ether, ether dissolves in the senses dissolve in the subtle elements dissolve in their subtle sources, the subtle sources dissolve in the principle of Mehet, the principle of Mehet dissolves in the principle of the unmanifested, and the principle of the unmanifested dissolves in the imperishable. The imperishable dissolves in the darkness, and the darkness becomes one with the transcendent Brahm. Beyond Brahm, there is no other existence or non existence, or both existence and non existence. This is the doctrine leading to liberation. This is the doctrine of the Veda. This is the doctrine of the Veda. In the beginning, all this was non existent. He who knows Brahm as unborn, as uncaused, as unestablished in anything else, as devoid of sound, as devoid of touch, as devoid of form, as devoid of taste, as devoid of smell, as imperishable, as not dense, not huge, as without origin, and as one's own self, he will never ever sorrow. That which is lifeless, that which is mouthless, that which is earless, that which is speechless, that which is mindless, splendorless, which is devoid of name and clan, which is headless, which is devoid of hands and feet, which is devoid of attachment, which is devoid of glowing redness like fire, which is immeasurable, which is not short, not long, which is not gross, not minute like a speck, which is not small, not great, which is not definable, which is not obscure, which is not demonstrable, which is not manifest, which is not shrouded, and which is without an interior and without an exterior. It does not feed on anything, nor does anything feed on it. One should attain this Brahm by taking recourse to the six means of truthfulness, of charity, of austerity, of fasting, of chastity of both body and mind, and renunciation of all such worldly objects which do not help one attain knowledge of the self. One should also practice the following three: self control, charity, and compassion. The pranas, or the vital airs of such a knower of Brahm, do not go out. They get merged with Brahm wherever he is. He who knows as such, becoming Brahm, he remains as Brahm alone. In the center of the heart is a lump of flesh of red color. In it, the white lotus blooms with its petals spread in different directions, like the red lotus. There are 10 hollow spaces in the heart in which the chief vital airs or the chief vital breaths are established. When the individual is joined with the pran vital breath, then he sees many and different rivers and cities. When joined with the Vyan vital breath, then he sees gods and seers. When joined with the Apan vital breath, he sees yakshas, demons, and forest fairies. When joined with the Udan vital breath, he sees the heavenly worlds and the gods Skand, Jayant, and the others. When joined with the Saman vital breaths, then he sees the heavenly world and all kinds of wealth. When joined with the Vairambh vital breath, then he sees what he has seen before. He sees what he has seen before, he hears what he has heard before, what he has enjoyed or not enjoyed before. He sees whatever is existent, he sees whatever is non existent. In the waking state, in fact, he sees all. In the subtle sheath, These hollow spaces branch out into 10 branches of 10 each. Out of each of these, 72,000 nadis or channels branch out. It is in these nadis or channels that the soul experiences the state of dream and causes sounds to be apprehended. Then, in the second subtle sheath, the soul experiences dreams. It sees this world and the other world, and it knows all sounds. The soul declares this to be the state of serene perception. In this state, the vital airs protect the gross body. The branch nadis are filled with greenish yellow, blue, yellow, and white colored fluids. Then, in the white lotus like sheath, which has bloomed like the red lotus, with its petals spread in different directions, are seen nadis called the hita, which are as thin as the thousandth part of the thickness of a hair. In the ether of the heart, situated in the interior of the sheath, the divine soul attains the state of deep sleep. When the soul is in this state of deep sleep, then it does not desire any desire, nor does it see any dreams. In this state, there are no gods. In this state, there are no worlds of gods. In this state, there are no sacrifices or absence of sacrifices. There is neither mother, nor father, nor kith, nor kin, neither a thief nor a killer of a knower of Brahma. His form is one of radiance. His form is one of immortality. He is only water and remains submerged in water. Here he becomes one with the life principle alone. Then, by resorting to the same course, he leaps into the waking state. He rules all. He rules all on all sides. Thus said Brahma to sage Subal. The Supreme Self assigns to the different local functionaries their respective spheres of action. The nadis are the links which establish connection with the different organs. Now, the eye is the sphere of the self. What is seen is the sphere of the objective. The sun is the divinity exercising its influence in aid of the self. The concerned nadi is the connecting link between the self and the organ of the eye. He who moves in the eye, he who moves in what is seen, he who moves in the sun, he who moves in the nadi, he who moves in the life principle, he who moves in the resultant knowledge, he who moves in the bliss, he who moves in the ether of the heart. In the interior of all these is this self. One should meditate on this self which is devoid of old age, which is free from death, which is fearless, which is sorrowless, which is endless. In the same manner, all the other functions, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the mind, the understanding, the self-sense, the thinking mind, the voice, the two hands, the 2 feet, the excretory organ, and the generative organs, all these are spheres of the self. What is heard, what is smelt, what is minded, what is understood, the contents of the self-sense, what is thought, what is spoken, what is handled, what is traversed, what is excreted, and what is enjoyed as sexual satisfaction. All these are objectives of the respective spheres of the self. The quarters of space, the air, Varun, the moon, Brahma, Rudra, Kshetrajna or the knower of the field, fire, Indra, Vishnu, death, and Prajapati. All these divinities are the divinities which aid the self in the sphere of its function. The respective nadis are the connecting link between the self and the functional organ. He who moves in all these, he who moves in all the spheres of the self, he who moves in the respective objectives, and he who moves in the respective divinities, he who moves in all the connecting nadis, he who moves in the life principle, he who moves in the resultant knowledge of all the spheres of the self, he who moves in the bliss, he who moves in the ether of the heart, in the interior of all these is this self. One should meditate on this self, which is devoid of old age, which is free from death, which is fearless, which is sorrowless, which is endless. This self is all knowing. This self is the Lord of all. This self is the ruler of all. This self is the indwelling spirit of all. This is the source of all that is in existence. This is the indwelling spirit. This self that is resorted to by all forms of happiness has no need of happiness of any kind. This self that is adored by all the Vedic texts and by all the scriptures has no need of any Vedic text or of any scripture. All this that is in existence is food for the self. But the self itself does not become food for anyone or anything. For this reason alone, and for this reason, it is the most excellent. It is the supreme director of all. Consisting of food, it is the self, it is the Atma of all gross objects. Consisting of life, it is the self, it is the Atma of all sense organs. Consisting of mind, it is the self, it is the Atma of all mental determinations. Consisting of intelligence, it is the self, it is the Atma of time. It is the witness facing the principle of all worldly happenings. Consisting of bliss, it is the self of dissolution. When there is no oneness, then from where can duality arise? When there is no mortality, then from where can immortality arise? The self is not endowed with internal knowledge, nor is it endowed with external knowledge, nor is it endowed with both kinds of knowledge. The self is not a mass of knowledge. It is not knowledge, nor is it non-knowledge, nor is it not knowledge. It is not previously known, nor is it capable of being known. This is the doctrine relating to liberation. This is the doctrine of the Veda. This is the doctrine of the Veda. This concludes part 1 of the Subala Upanishad. Om Shanti 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 Om.